Okay. Hello? Hello. Hello. I apologize for my voice. I'm still sick. So, I apologize. You're gonna have a deep voice thorn for another day. I thought I would recover by the time that Thursday rolled by because I was feeling sick on Monday and Tuesday, but I did not, and so I'm a little bit under the weather, but being sick, who does that ever stop? Let's see, can we get the chat to pop up? Hello, chat. Welcome in, chat. Today is a momentous day for Dev Aaron Keller. Finally talked about 6v6 versus 5v5. I have it bookmarked here. We're gonna go ahead and look at the director's take that he so kindly showed about. So we're gonna go ahead and move over and discuss about that while we are talking about the stuff. Let's go ahead and make sure I get this all set up correctly. All right, here we are. We're here with Aaron Keller. Cancel your plans. Put on your thickest socks. Settle in your cozy spot. You know the one. The 6v6 director's take is live now. So I already clicked on it. So it goes over the information Blizzard over here. And it's a long take. Like, it's huge. It's a massively long thing. Let me see if I can just zoom in a little bit better so you guys can actually see what we're going to be talking about. Because it's right here. This is the main subject of information we're going to be talking about. And it's long. It's really long. So, hello, Honest. If they want to keep 5v5, why not just make it an option? We'll get into that. We'll get into all of that. I was gonna make a video on this. I still am gonna make a video on it. But I figured you guys that come to the live, I guess live stream, live show, right, deserve to hear my thoughts and opinions, live reaction. I'm still doing a lot of thinking over having read it. I've already read it once, but I'm gonna read it again. There is a lot to this dev blog, like a lot. Okay, so we're gonna be here for a while. So, like Aaron said, strap up, get your comfy socks on, lay back, get a glass of tea. You're about to hear a very sick person try to read the dev blog to you. So, but it's okay. That's what cough drops are for, right? So I'm gonna quickly take one of these. That way I have like a soothed throat. So when I do this, when I talk about it, I won't cough as much. That's a theory, So just give me a second. But without further ado, guys, I would love to know how your day has been going. I hope your day is good. I hope you've been having a fantastic time. I have been having a good day. I've mainly slept all day. I talked to some of my friends. They're like, you should just sleep. Just sleep, Thor. Just don't stream. I was like, dude, I haven't done anything all day. I can't just not do at least something, right? And I really like to stream. It's my favorite time of the day. Like, this is what I love to do. So I don't really make being unless I'm in the hospital, guys. Unless I'm in the hospital, I'll still show up to my scheduled times, so I don't think you guys mind hearing my deep voice. It's not super deep, but it's hey, I'm sick kind of voice. So let's go ahead and let's start this conversation. Hey everyone, there's been a lot of talk about 6v6 lately, and it's only intensified in the recent weeks since we've last posted our director's take and made a Twitter post with a promise to talk about it in the future. Well, now is the future, and this is the next piece. So let's get into it. Wait, let's not get into it quite yet. This is a pretty complex and nuanced topic, and it gets to the beating heart of what makes this game tick. Our players have different opinions and preferences on what the ideal number of players in an Overwatch match. So does our team. We're a microcosm of a broader community which discusses this internally. I'm hoping this is the piece will will serve as an introduction to our own discussion and a jumping off point to engage with all of you. So Aaron Keller is really took a long time to get everything out, and I feel like there's a bit to go over and talk about it. And I think from what I know was about to come up, he makes some pretty good points, but I also think some of the points are also disingenuous, and we'll get into that when the time comes. But like, I'm glad that we're getting this type of communication from Aaron and the dev team, because back in Overwatch 1 they would not they would not, you know, well, talk to the community as much. So that is a good thing about it so far. All right, let's go ahead and continue. I'd also like to set a few expectation and ground rules. First, it's pretty long. Creators are going to lose their voices reading this one aloud. If you like a TLDR, the what's next section should suffice. Secondly, I'm not here to tell you what you ought to like or what's empirically better. This is a game, and your preferences for fun are relative to your own taste, ability, and experience. Lastly, there are years of discussions that affect such a fundamental piece of Overwatch. Some of you might intimately aware of these, while others might not. Before diving in, I'd like to set the stage and give some context on some of the larger changes to the game that ultimately accumulated in the 5v5 format we have today. And here we go. The historical this is basically going over all the big changes they made to Overwatch 1. So game of the year in 2016, Overwatch was a okay, we'll just read it because he's gonna go over it. I really don't want to repeat some points that he's already gonna make, so let's go ahead and just jump straight into this. There have been 3 large format changes to Overwatch. The first happened shortly after the game launched, and this was hero limits. Before this, there could be any number of one particular hero. You could have 6 Genjis or 6 Reinhardts. If my memory serves right, the winner of Team 4's first internal tournament was 1 Winston and 5 Zenyatas. We called it the Quinston. Zenyatta orbs stacked with no cap to healing at the time. It was glorious and terrifying. Yeah, that was huge. That was one of the big reasons why they didn't know hero limits. Okay, let's just continue. We'll talk about it after. During the early development, it was necessary to have duplicate heroes per team. Our first core combat milestone only had 4 heroes as a roster. This game no longer necessary. Okay. As the roster grew, this was no longer necessary. It also introduced the issue Overwatch heroes have distinct kits and impactful abilities. Stacking abilities could be fun, but it posed challenges to balancing of many of those abilities in the game. People reference double barrier, but Back then, you could have 6. Imagine cycling 6 immortality fields. The number 1 team of compositions. Yeah. See, like, okay, so he's basically saying it's a good change why we got rid of no limit. And he's not wrong. Like, nobody's saying that this is wrong from what he's saying here. I mean, I guess there might be somebody saying that this is wrong, but I don't think he's wrong. I think he's absolutely right. Having 6 immortality fields would be annoying as heck. I mean, hell, we already have 2 immortality fields in 5v5, and y'all know my opinion about that. It makes it like slamming my head into a wall, you know? So he's not wrong, like, in that aspect. Okay, let's continue. Okay, the number of team compositions and strategies was huge. A variety was great, but we didn't feel like we could ever truly balance the game without severely watering down our heroes. So we made the choice to impose limit of 1 each hero per team, essentially solve the issue of ability stacking. But it did have a few side effects. The trade-off was some of the creativity in putting the team strategies together in compositions for a more consistent and balanced experience. It took away some choice from players. If someone wanted to play Tracer, but you were already Tracer, the song reference, alright, they would be unable to play. A theme of this and future discussions was limiting match variety as well as the freedom of creativity in order to create a more balanced, consistent, and competitive experience for the players. Remember this point. We'll be touching this in a few more pieces. Okay. In the other 2 large format changes were a lot of positive benefits and are not as clear cut. Okay, so there we go. The second change to the format was open queue to role queue, which limited the team compositions to 2 heroes to each role. Before role queue, there was no enforced 2-2-2 composition, and players had the freedom to select any role once loaded into a match. With an open queue, teams often had a lot of freedom choice with what heroes and team compositions could play, but there was quite a few problems with role queue intended to address. Prior to implementing role queue, there was a stark imbalance in number of people playing each role within the match. Damage by far, and still today, which is true, the most popular role, and tank was by far the least popular. In fact, seeing matches with 5 or 6 damage players on a team was not uncommon. And he's not wrong about that either. So, like people have said, 5v5 was always the queue time format change to get queue times up. And we'll see that more going on into this dev blog. But we're going to go ahead and continue. This role imbalance frequently led to wildly imbalanced matches between teams. The game played better with heroes from all 3 roles were selected. And that's where it starts. It started at the top. Like, the really skilled players would build really good teams and have very different variety selections. While the people, when you got into gold, bronze, and silver, it was the Wild West with the roles, okay? You'll see this as we continue on. Since we couldn't balance around a certain role ratio for each team, it even made introducing new heroes more difficult, since any new hero kit had to take consideration of hundreds of different team compositions and abilities that could overlap with. And the move to role queue format was aimed to mitigate these challenges. Alright, moving to role queue solved many of these problems and added some additional benefits to the game. Well, with role queue in place, matchmaking is based on skill within a given role, not just skill overall, which was a big problem in Overwatch 1 because they would matchmake you skill overall back in the day for your comp match. And some people that were really good at support would be forced to play DPS or forced to play tank, which was more often than not, and they wouldn't be able to win or clutch the games because they'd be forced to play a role that they weren't good at. So this is a really good change. Roll queue was a huge pog, by the way. Like, as much as people want to say roll queue is bad for the game, and we should try 5v5 open queue. We have 5v5 open queue. It just doesn't get played because it's not the main format of the game. So, if people liked 5v5 open queue more, there would be a lot more people that play it. I think regardless of where the game mode is on the screen selection, if the game mode is fun, people will play it. But yeah. Okay. So the ability to matchmake around set rolls provides a big measurable boost in match quality. Roll queue also solidified the identity of each role, and the fantasy of doing that role's job became clearer, which is the destruction of offense versus defense. Which I still think they kind of like, they follow that fundamental still to today. I would bet this just based on how they designed some of the heroes like Malga and Ramatra. Say what you want about Malga, but he's not good into defense. Say what you want about Ramatra, but he is way better at the enemies come to him than he is going to the enemies, which means he's an objective defense-based character. Okay, I'm not gonna argue about that much. Like, I still think that they still kind of follow that philosophy for certain roles. I think the damage roll just has kind of had a content drought, so we haven't seen that from the damage roll as much, but I can still give you characters like Symmetra and Torb and Junkrat are better defensively than offensively. You know? It's just how some game modes played, which is why 2CP was a pain in the ass for most characters, because inherently defensive characters were always really, really good on those maps, and not a lot of people liked playing against inherently defensive bunker style teams, which is why I think once 2CP got absolutely obliterated, I think we should have just kept 6v6, because I don't think people hated that format. I think they just hated 2CP game mode, and I think a lot of the problems is there was way too many 2CP maps than there was of any other game mode in the game, and the content was dry. Okay, gosh, I'm already starting and I haven't even finished. Okay, however, I'm gonna start again. However, the switch to roll queue system did have some downsides, the largest of which was much longer queue times. Prior to roll queue, Matchmaker just needed to find 12 players with similar skill levels in order to put effective matches together. After roll queue, it needed to find 4 players of each role to make that match. The total of numbers, people hated the camping style gameplay. Yeah, it's what we've been playing now, though. If you think about it, think about all the main tanks that have been dominant meta in 5v5, and it's still the dominant meta mostly today. It's just bunker style sustain, which means poke. So, like, I don't know. Well, I do know, but saying I don't know makes me more friendly. I'm gonna take a sip of tea. It's up for Skay and roasted rum. I saw his video today of him saying he carried us in Overwatch 2 while he was playing Orisa. And if you watch his health bar, you can see me and I think it was either Skay or Jen playing Zenyatta, and we were double pumping him with heals, so he basically was immortal. So if you watch his health bar, you'll see it barely dip down before it's instantly filled back up. So we had the unkillable tank go and just murk everybody. And I thought it was just really funny. On the brink of death, yeah. Okay. Prior to roll queue matchmaker. Okay, yeah, we've already read that. It's almost solely governed by the ratio of people queuing for the least popular role. Given game's lower relative ratio of players queuing tank than any other damage and support roles, queue times went way up. we'll go into details about this later. You guys have already know my opinions on that. I think the reason why tank was so unpopular is because, okay, gosh, they'll talk about this later, but I'm just letting you guys know I have fundamental disagreements to this right now. This is where me and Aaron start disagreeing on stuff. Okay. The team tied to the addressive imbalance in various ways. We introduced priority pass. Yep. Okay. So this is where it's going. Players who played the low demanded roles tank a shorter queue when they switch to damage, then they would have a positive effect on several weeks. But the influence quickly faded. We also introduced systems to reward players for playing tank, eventually giving them a loot box and a bunch of XP for queuing that role. None of these were able to put a dent into the demand for playing DPS. Damage queues drifted a bit lower over time, but much of this was due to the introduction of open queue competitive and the permanent loss of damaged players unwilling to wait that long for a match. So that is also that's also true, but the reason why that's true is I've always said this is just the lack of options to the tank role. Back then, when this was first a thing, you have to realize, okay, let me click on this. Okay, so in the tank role now, we have 12 tanks. In Overwatch 1, we had 5. So my argument has always been the lack of options for tanks. There wasn't that many diverse tanks that you could play. It was D.Va, Orisa, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Sigma, Winston, with Wrecking Ball and Zarya. All right, there wasn't that many tanks, and Sigma and Wrecking Ball and Orisa didn't come out for a while. Okay, so you had the main tanks of D.Va, Reinhardt, Winston, Zarya, and Roadhog, and they would trick DPS players into playing Roadhog all the time. That's why Roadhog never got hardly nerfed in Overwatch 1, because they knew they could get damage players into playing Roadhog. So hog metas were more rampant back then. But now I'm saying why the whole problem was lack of options, because I feel like Doomfist as a tank, Junker Queen and Mauga and Ramatra definitely solve that problem. We have so many more tanks. The problem is now is that people hate playing solo tank, because solo tanking with all the CC in the game right now absolutely blows booty chunks. Okay, and welcome back, Bitchy. So that's the problem. I've already said that the main problem that Overwatch 1 had was lack of content, and it's so obvious throughout many stages of its life. Like Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, from 2016 to 2022, Overwatch 2 has already passed most of the balanced matchmaking within a year and a half of its lifespan than Overwatch 1 had in 4 to 5 years of it being released. So you're telling me it was just a lack of content. First and final point. If we had this team working on 6v6, I definitely believe that they could handle it way better than the old team could, because now they don't have the fake promise of promoting Overwatch 2, you know? And